What did that do for you?
It was big for me in terms of recovery. Just getting my body right. Obviously, took a little bit of a hit and had to leave the game. So just to be able to have a week off to allow my, my knee to rest and my ankle to rest. So just recovery and also, extra week, to prepare, get stronger, study your opponent, put some things in, figure out some things, some ways to get better, and doing a lot of self scouting as well. So overall, it was really really important for us to get that, and I think we did what we were supposed to do on the bye week.
When he first came down on your leg, did you fear that was a big deal injury?
I did, but like I said after the game, just thankful that I was able to come out of that without any major injury.
How's it felt the last couple of days at practice?
Progressively gotten better every day, and I assume that'll continue.
The NFL apparently looked at that and decided nothing was wrong with that hit. Do you have a thought on that? I mean, do you think that kind of play in general should not exist, or?
I know it's a tough game, man. I know it's a lot going on out there. What I will say is I know that style of tackle was banned by rugby, and there's been a lot of cases where that's caused injuries, and I just think it was, in my opinion, was unnecessary on the sideline out of bounds. But obviously they didn't think so. So who cares what I got to say?
When it comes to your offensive line, we've seen a lot of injuries. Everybody says next man up, but not everybody can deliver and play at a high level. Why is your offensive line able to do that?
Yeah, I think you got to start with their coach, with Andy. Just the way that he coaches those guys, the unity inside of that room. He coaches every single guy as if they're the starter. And, he forces them to prepare that way. And so, obviously, we know we love to have our starting guys out there, but we've had situations where a bunch of different guys have had to step up. And in our most recent game, you've seen Evan, go to guard and Olu step in and play center. And, AB getting in there and, Ben Brown getting in there and just a ton of guys stepping up. And so I think it just starts with Andy and the way that he coaches. I think it's a lot has to do with our system, the way that we practice, and then overall just those individual guys, knowing their assignment, being professionals, and then stepping in and doing a great job.
When you self-scouted the offense over the bye, what stood out to you?
Yeah, a lot of positives. We've been really good at sustaining drives. I feel like we've started fast for the most part. First and second down has been phenomenal. When we've had to pass a bunch, we've been efficient. And overall, we scored a lot of points. But I say that knowing that we can be a lot better, knowing that I can be a lot better, specifically on third down, specifically in the red zone. And so, I always look at things with a glass half full, mindset. And so I look at it as a way for us to improve and maybe be the number one offense in the NFL. I think we're a top 5, top 10 offense, but if we can clean up some of the little things, I think, that's what we're striving to be, is to be the best offense in football. And so we've got to clean those things up. And, I think we'll have opportunities to do that, in the future.
When you look at a guy like Trey Hendrickson, what part of his skill set is the toughest to counter?
I think he's a technician. He understands leverage. He understands he's got a ton of different moves and counter moves. Right now he's got 6 sacks, so he's very productive. A guy who's going to give it everything he's got to the final whistle. And, another great, challenge for us up front. And, that's going to be every single week. It's the way the NFL is built. And so we've got to be ready for him and all their guys. They got a bunch of really good guys across that front 4 and really in their front 7. And, they bring a lot of different looks and they challenge you in multiple ways. And so we just got to be prepared for it and then finally just go out there and execute.
You've had a lot of good games on the road these last 2 years. Big numbers, actually better numbers, I feel, with splits than home. Is there something to that challenge you like of being on the road and sort of everybody against you?
I do enjoy being on the road. The crowd really gives me a lot of energy, and I love being home as well. Our crowd gives me energy here too. I just think it's just kind of how it's been. Just how it's been, and we've had a lot of leads at home, and so we've been running the ball in the fourth quarters and the second halves. And so when we're on the road, we played a bunch of close games where we've had to pass late in those games, and so I think that's just probably what it is more than anything.
In facing a pass rush with a good defense, like you said, almost every week, what is the key in executing? How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it starts, obviously it starts with the little things like calling the plays in the huddle and getting to the line of scrimmage, in the proper fashion, really having that tempo. We want to be an up-tempo offense. So it starts with that, getting in and out of the huddle, getting our substitutions right, calling the plays right, and getting to the line of scrimmage. And then just doing our process, right, making the mic points, whether that's the pass or the run game. And then once the ball snapped, every single guy doing his job to the best of his ability. It really comes down to all 11 men playing together and playing connected. There's really no secret recipe to it. And so we just got to go out there and do our jobs. I can only speak for myself when I say, I got to be the one that makes everyone else around me better. And so that's really where I can help everyone out, is continuing to elevate guys and make them better.
Self-scouting a little bit over the bye. How big a focus was third down for you?
Huge focus. That's an area, like I said, seems like since week one, we've need to improve on. And we've been scoring a bunch of points regardless. And so that's why I say if we get if we can clean that up, get better at that, who knows where our offense can be, So we want to continue to focus on our strengths, which is being great on first and second down, being efficient. But then if we can, fix our weakness, who knows where we can go. So just working on the little things and trying to, correct the simple things. It's not huge glaring mistakes that are happening. It's just one thing here or there, and it's affecting us on third down.
Schematically, what are some hallmarks of Cincy's defense?
There are multiple. They'll rush four. They got four, great guys, great pass rushers, and then they'll send 5, 6, or 7. And they got some zero. So they have a bunch of different looks, and they like to be multiple. They're a game plan defense, so you'll know what you'll get on game day. It'll be something different than we've seen on tape, and that's pretty much how it is all the time for us. So they present a bunch of challenges. They have a really good D coordinator, a really smart head coach, and so I assume it's going to be that ultimate chess match, like always.
Do more defenses nowadays do that, where they sort of everything is game plan specific versus sort of sticking to what you do best week in and week out?
I think it just comes down to philosophy and the coordinator and the coach. Some defenses say we'll line up and play what we play and you have to beat us. Some guys will say, hey, we're going to give you a bunch of different looks and we're going to switch it up and see if you can make the right calls, the right checks, and see if we can cause some confusion. And so it just comes down to which coordinator, how they feel about their philosophy and their players.
Do you think you guys need to do anything to get Jackson involved a little bit more, or you think that'll just kind of happen kind of naturally?
Yeah, I think there's obviously a lot of emphasis on it. We got to continue to, give him the ball, in the right times, in the right moments. But those things will happen over the course of the season. I think he's been doing a great job. As I've always said, he's a great player, and he's going to make so many plays. And I know, it hasn't gone exactly the way that he's probably wanted it, but that's the league, man. It's only one football. And we got to go out there and play to win. And Jackson's going to make a ton of big plays for us. He's going to be, the star player that he's always been. And so, it's just letting him, be himself and, let the ball come to him when it comes.
If anything, have you said to him?
Just been, just uplifting him, encouraging him, as always. Spending extra time watching film and, really just showing him and teaching him the things that we're seeing as quarterbacks. And then overall, man, just working with him. It's really just a process. It's a step-by-step process, and he's very young in that process. And so we just got to continue to work with him, and he's continuing to work hard. So as long as his spirits are high, which they are, we're in a good place. And so we just got to keep working on it.
Why do you feel, as a leader, why do you feel that you need to speak to him on that? He's a first-round pick. He's probably got all these expectations.
Yeah, exactly what you said. Expectations can be a mug, for a bunch of people. And I think the thing that you have to remain confident is your process, right? The process over the results, right? Everyone's looking at the results and seeing numbers and stats, and it's, everyone's big on fantasy, but the things that he's done within the game to help us win, the blocking in the run game, the ways that he's, run his routes that allow other guys to get open, that's helping our offense. And so the process that he's in right now is just continuing to grow as a young player, and the results will come, over time.
Geno, when you think of how much shuffling there's had to be on the offensive line and the way you guys have been able to perform through 4 games, just what's your kind of take on how good that group's managed to handle all the stuff that's been thrown at them?
Just, very, very happy for those guys. Very appreciative. Obviously, they're protecting me back there. And, just appreciative of the way that Andy's coached them, the way that Shane's helped them out with the play calling and different things schematically we've done. And overall, just the way that they've played. Each one of those guys I know has high expectations for for themselves, as they should. And when they step in the game, you know, they're a part of this offense. We're an 11-man unit, plan is one. And so it doesn't matter who's out there. We've all got to go out there and get the job done.
All right. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.